And I don't understand how trained medical professionals can give medications to someone with such severe, with 80% cirrhosis of the liver, and they're prescribing medications that literally have disclaimers saying do not give with liver damage. And they did, and he was dead within a week of being sent home. Like, I can't, if people can't see that correlation, I don't understand what will make them see that the medical industry is literally designed to keep you sick and eventually kill you.
You're listening to Natural AF, the podcast exposing suppressed truths about health, reality, and human potential. I'm your host, Isaac. I'm the founder of Natural Art Form, and I'm joined by my Australian co-host and partner, Alexa, a Site K facilitator and human design coach. If you're ready to challenge the status quo and explore how the world really works while staying grounded in your deepest purpose, then you're in the right place. Thanks for joining us. Let's get Natural AF. All right, welcome everybody back to Natural AF. This is a kind of a hard episode we're going to talk about just personally, but it's also very, very important, really important discussion about the medical industry, the medical death model, as some have called it, and malpractice, and an incident that happened just recently with a family member on Alexa's side. But before we get into all of that, we're going to say some really important stuff, but we want to make sure that we're leaving you with a hopeful message. So there's some really beautiful things going on. And this is an important time to embrace, both the hardships, but also the opportunity and the necessity and the urgency to come together and meet with like-minded people, really get to know each other and build lasting connections. It's so important. And so first up, we want to promote and just, raise awareness and get people going to Ali Demigard's retreat in Bali. Mm-hmm. We had him on, as you know, last episode.
Yeah.
And
hope you guys enjoyed that, by the way.
Such a good interview.
Yeah, we loved interviewing Ollie. He's just such a wealth of knowledge, but also just such a beautiful man. Like, his outlook and like this retreat that he's doing and, what he's doing, like he's really doing his part in, I love that he calls it getting light-minded people together, light-minded.
Versus like-minded.
Yeah. And really helping to bring people together and like raise the frequency, so to speak. I know we hear that and it sounds a bit new age, but that's really what we're doing. Like, this is what's happening, this mass awakening that's happening, and we all have to kind of do our part. And Ollie's definitely doing that. So couldn't recommend his retreat highly enough. We are dying to go, but I don't think we'll be able to make it in April. But there's actually only a handful of spots left. So they are almost at capacity. So if you are interested, check the link in the show notes, and then using our affiliate code, you can get €100 off per ticket, but you will have to get in quick because they're almost fully booked.
Yeah. And what are the dates for that again?
So that'll be the 18th to the 25th of April in Bali. So just head to the link in the show notes. You'll find all the details. You'll find our affiliate code, all of that.
Yeah. So definitely go out, support Ali Demigard, and support the show. If you value what we're doing, if you align with our message, the show is listener supported, so everything you purchase from Natural Art Form goes to help us keep this show on the road and keep the operation going. And we're on a mission to provide the most high quality products, organic formulations that are massively effective. I'm calling it like high performance remedies for high performance people. And we're doing a clearance sale in the US right now. So you can save 20% off all products in the US. And that's to make room for our next gen products that are going to be the same quality and consistency and potency as what we have here in Australia, because we're starting to take responsibility and taking in-house the production of the actual oil extracts of the different plants, like comfrey, using the leaf and the root, like we're doing here. The calendula, arnica, if we can get it, that's like a tough one to find. So go to the website, naturalartform.com. There's only a limited quantity in the States. So take action now. That will run out pretty quickly. We've got less than 50 products total there. So these are small batch, still very, very high quality, but get them at a discount now before they sell out. And then stay tuned for when we drop the next batch. The discount is already applied when you check out, so you don't have to have a code or anything remembered. Now let's shift into today's topic.
So yeah, for anyone that's following me on Instagram already and, has been seeing my stories over the last couple of months, I have spoken about my uncle. He became quite unwell at the beginning of this year. Now, he was an alcoholic for pretty much all of his life. And towards the end of last year, I mean, for a while, his health has been declining. He's had cirrhosis of the liver for quite some time. And I think it was around the end of last year, his doctor's been telling him for so long, like, you need to stop drinking. But the cirrhosis got to the point where I think he only had about 20 to 25% of his liver functioning. So he did actually stop drinking. And what I think happened is that he went into quite a huge detox shock and he ended up very unwell and in the ICU. He was on dialysis. He had a, oxygen tube so he could breathe. He was really in not a good shape at all. And we thought we were going to lose him then. And they moved him to a palliative care unit. He ended up getting quite a lot better. So over about a month.
Yeah. From potentially they took him off medications, right?
Yeah, well, first it was very touch and go, but eventually they took him off the oxygen and the dialysis and they said he wouldn't last much longer. So they moved him to palliative care. Then in palliative care, and he was in a couple of different units, but when they moved him to another one that was much better staffed, he was getting really good care there. They had taken him off. So then we found out when he was in hospital that he had been on 15 different medications before he ended up in hospital. So just to add to, obviously he had stopped drinking, but he was still on 15 different medications at the time. So ends up in hospital, ends up in the palliative care unit. When we went and visited him, so we were in Sydney recently, we went and visited him and I was actually shocked because I had seen him in ICU. And then when we visited him, he was back to his old self, basically a little bit quieter and his mood was a little bit different, but he was healthy. He was fine. And he was only on 2 medications at that point. They then discharged him because I literally said, how long can they keep him in palliative care if he's getting better? So they actually did discharge him. They sent him home, prescribed him another 9 medications when he left. And a couple of days later, he had a seizure at home, ended up back in hospital. And unfortunately, he's just passed away, literally just a few days ago. Now, normally I wouldn't share something like this so soon, but honestly, I feel like a lot of us, even mum, she's been down in Sydney for a couple of months now to be with him. And, it's her because my mum lost her parents young and there was 4 siblings and now they're down to 2, which is really sad, but they've only ever had each other. So she's been down there fully in it. And I really feel that we all kind of did our grieving earlier this year when we thought we were going to lose him, when it was really bad, because that's what they were telling us. The doctors were he's not going to last long at all. They basically said, we're going to take him off all the machines and he's probably not going to last very long. And he pushed through and he did a lot better. But as it's gone on, and mind you, he had the seizure, ended up in hospital again. And he's had really bad fluid retention and stuff. But again, that was seemingly completely under control when he was only on 2 medications in the hospital. And yeah, he went home and was on all these medications that when my mum she looked up every single one that they prescribed and every single one said, do not give with liver damage. And he only had 20 to 25% of his liver functioning. And yeah, I just feel like we have to talk about this because it's so blaringly obvious to me that it's not, yes, the state of his body wasn't great, right? But he was recovering and he was getting better. And the common denominator in all of this is the amount of medications that he was on. And I don't understand how trained medical professionals can give medications to someone with such severe, with 80% cirrhosis of the liver, and they're prescribing medications that literally have disclaimers saying do not give with liver damage. And they did, and he was dead within a week of being sent home. If people can't see that correlation, I don't understand what will make them see that the medical industry is literally designed to keep you sick and eventually kill you.
Yeah. And that's we're not the first people to say something like that. the first time I heard that spelled out exactly was from a physician who essentially let go or she stopped prescribing drugs and then gave the patients that she had a choice to do natural stuff, to do nothing, or to take the drugs if they wanted. But she gave them the choice. The ones that stopped, and I'm talking about former Dr. Jennifer Daniels. She's kind of a hard one to get a hold of or find. She's, been banned from all kinds of stuff. They literally revoked her physician's license. She was I think she was top notch. She was like Harvard trained, Wharton school trained, like all that.
She's definitely on our guest wish list. We definitely want to get her on Monday.
Yeah. And so basically so before, when she was just prescribing the actual standard protocol for each of these patients with all their different health problems, they had a certain death rate, right? And a calculable death rate. And it went to 0 practically when she just gave them a choice not to take the medicines and not to do those protocols. And she pretty much just called it out and said it like it is, like it's a death system, a death-based system.
Yeah.
Sick care. And I get it. Like a lot of doctors, when they hear that, will instantly become defensive and or some might even want to push back and sue for defamation or whatever. And that's not our point to tell people not to go to the hospital. We're not telling people not to go and see doctors and this and that.
Well, we're not giving any form of health advice. We always advocate that people make their own health decisions, first and foremost. And unfortunately, the medical system is predicated on you taking the advice of these professionals that play God in a lot of ways, and you're not allowed to question them.
Yeah.
So when you tell them...
Yeah, you need to double check what they're doing.
Yeah.
Be aware of the medications that they're prescribing loved ones that are elderly, and read the inserts and understand it, because they don't.
Yeah. Well,
I know that for a fact. Doctors are not reading those inserts. They don't actually know. They have a program that tells them what medical interactions might have, like medication interactions. Some of them are aware, they've gone through the training. They know some of it, but they're not really looking that hard at these interactions. They're just prescribing what is the standard of care, which is decided by administrators that are often physicians, but they're not practicing. They're in an administrative position, and medical boards, and they're paid for and funded and trained by pharmaceutical companies who make the drugs.
Exactly.
That's the reality.
And the regulatory bodies are all funded by Big Pharma. It's the same here in Australia with the TGA as it is in the States with the FDA. And, perfect example was when they were discharging him to go home, they're listing all of these medications that they're giving him. And one of them were just sugar pills. And my mum was questioning all of them. And the sugar pills, she said, why are you giving him sugar pills? He hasn't been on them at all in hospital. He's eating. His sugar levels have been fine, because they kept testing him. Because that's what happened. He was so unwell that when he was in palliative care, and then when he was moved to a different palliative care unit, they got regular testing done, and they could see all his levels were getting better. Everything was getting better. And so she questioned the doctor and said, why are you giving him sugar pills when his sugar levels are fine? He's not been on them. He's eating. Why? And the doctor said, I'll have to go and check that. And then she came back and said, oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't need that. So we won't give him those. So this is exactly what we're saying. If you don't question anything that they're doing, they will just do, the standard of care, and this is the other problem that I have with the medical industry. It's a one size fits all. It's just, we're just going to do the standard treatment that we do for everyone. And they're never, ever looking at the body or the person as a whole, because it's so much more than just physical health, which we always talk about on this show. It's so much more than physical health. And, and then my mum looked up all of these other medications that they still gave him, and all of them were contraindicated with liver damage. So I actually don't understand how they prescribed him that when he's got such severe liver damage.
Yeah.
And even if their reasoning is, oh, well, he's not got long to last anyway. He's not going to last long anyway. We'll just give him whatever. That's not the right attitude, in my opinion.
No, that's not how you care for people. Just this haphazard thing. And it's, just the idea that so he's already sick and dying. You're not going to like put as much effort into like looking after them. That is wrong. But also this whole idea of their average, and that's the standard of care. I'm not a statistician. I have a friend who is, and it sounds incredibly boring to me, but it's a good way to get like a perspective on things, right? So if you think about it like a law of averages, if you base your care, your medical care off of averages, but it's from a perspective like a hospital perspective where the majority of people you're seeing are sick, ill health, elderly, like whatever, on the health spectrum, maybe at the lower end of the bell curve. And then that's who you're formatting or basing your procedures and standard of care for. Then someone like me who gets, hit or, has a health issue go in there, they're treating me down here when I'm like, health-wise, I'm up here. So the statistics and all this is our standard of care based on all this scientific data. It's coming from, it doesn't matter how much data you have. If the baseline philosophy is flawed or the baseline like presumptions are errors, which they often are, because the baseline presumption is one, chemicals are better than natural things, that pharmaceutical interventions are better than dietary changes and lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
And those things are like, oh, that's like good to do, but it's hard to convince people to do it. They're not going to. So now our only problem is medical compliance or medication compliance.
Yeah. Well, and they're also not trained in making dietary and lifestyle changes. Doctors aren't trained in that. They're given, look, I don't know what it is now, but I know that I think both in Australia and, well, definitely in Australia, don't know about the States, but I imagine it would be the same. It's like they get in 6 years of training, they get like 2 weeks of nutritional training. They're not trained in that. So they're not going to recommend that. And then that's the thing. It's like they would just refer on and they don't see it as, necessary or not something to prioritize.
Yeah.
Just to give an example of what you're talking about, it's the same with blood testing. So whenever you get your blood tested and you see the ranges, those ranges, the normal ranges, are based on just their database of blood tests. Now, think about it. Most people that are getting blood tested are unwell to some degree. So that's not a very good indicator of what healthy ranges should be. So it's the exact same thing in terms of the standard of care. And so we're also bringing this up because like it's quite well known in the States that it's in the top 2 causes of death is iatrogenic causes.
Top 3, but I'll lay it out a little as simply as I can. Why, like top 3, but it seems like the odds or the statistics are stacked against actually getting an accurate number. For those that don't know, iatrogenic is a medical term for physician mistakes that lead to either illness or death. Iatrogenic illness or iatrogenic death means it was a mistake by the hospital or the physician. And they call it that because it's a way to hide it. But it's the number 3 leading cause of death in the U.S., somewhere around 500,000 something deaths annually, I believe.
And can I say the fact that it's number 3 in the U.S. and knowing that the cases are going to be so underreported, just like they were in COVID. So again, this is exactly what happened during COVID is exactly what happens outside of just looking at the COVID era, was that the COVID vaccine specifically, so many of the vaccine reactions were so underreported because most people go to the doctor and say, oh, I've got XYZ now, and they don't make the correlation that it all came on after the vaccine. So the same thing happens where, and that's what I was looking up because that's why we wanted to talk about this, because it's very well known in the States. And even with that, most likely being an underreported number, that's huge. It's number 3. Was that right?
Yeah.
What you looked up? Yeah.
Yeah. So the top one, according to the CDC's ranking, is heart disease with around 683,000 deaths annually. Cancer is next in the U.S. with 620,000 deaths annually. And then you have a large range for iatrogenic deaths, estimated between 250,000 to 440,000 deaths annually. So that's the 3rd largest killer. But the reason it's so difficult to actually track this is because there is no place on the death certificate to put down iatrogenic deaths or what is the term they used for it? The medical errors. There's no medical error section on a death certificate. So at the time of this recording, that's true. So
that's what I'm saying, though. That's the States. And we all know, like...
You want the stats for Australia?
Well, it's so hard to find. And this is why I want to talk about this, because here in Australia, we are so much more, what's the word? Led down the garden path, let's say. And there is so much, like, even just looking this up, it was difficult to find any kind of, like, definitive data like that, like with numbers and whatever. So the best I could find was actually a great website, and I'll link it in the show notes. It's an Australian-based website that basically reports on medical errors. And they kind of said it's this range of around 18,000 to 54,000 iatrogenic deaths in Australia per year. Now, I definitely believe that that is grossly underestimated.
Well,
because that's like 0.2, sorry, 0.2 to 0.3%
of the population.
Of the population. I didn't do it against deaths. I didn't work it out against deaths. So, but it sounds super, super low. But again, that's because most of these cases we're not hearing of. But I did find on this website some of the more highly publicized, some cases of medical malpractice, and all of them had this common thread that nothing got investigated until the stories hit the media, until the media picked them up. Nothing was done about them.
Yeah.
And this is a common trope that you hear in the medical system when things get reported. It either just gets brushed under the rug. I think a lot of, if people do take legal action, a lot of them just end in settlements because they don't want it out in the public.
The primary function of medical insurance anyways is just to settle out with lawsuits.
Yeah, it's the same thing that we hear with the pharmaceutical industry where, like, if you look up Pfizer, I think Pfizer holds the record for most amount of money paid in fines, like as a company.
Yeah, pretty sure it's in the billions.
Billions, yeah, it's in billions. And it's the same thing where they pay out these huge payouts and huge fines and things like that. And then they just go on doing whatever they're doing. Like the system is not set up for accountability, to hold people accountable or hold these companies or systems or anything accountable. Just like, oh, just pay the person out or just pay the fine and then go about your merry way. Just keep doing what you're doing and nothing changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is, so to put it in perspective, the official numbers from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, ABS, the number one death or cause of death is approximately 19,000 deaths annually from heart disease, 17,000 approximately from dementia or Alzheimer's, which I thought was odd that that's in the top two.
I'm not. No, it's huge here.
And the third one, which, AI is not perfect, folks. It says approximately 18,000 due to iatrogenic deaths, which would actually make that number two in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then that's like on the low end. I don't think it's probably up around 54,000 deaths annually from medical malpractice, or errors, just because what they're saying about heart disease only being 19K.
I think this range is including the COVID era because the deaths skyrocketed during that time. And so that
100%.
would have been, I think they're probably including that because it is quite a large range.
So but is it too much to say? Like, are we getting into hot water? Like, does our audience think they're like, oh, we should watch it, be careful about what we say? Because I know any kind of challenges or any kind of open outspokenness about the pharmaceutical industry, they tend to like come after you and like all this stuff. But I'm like, is it too much to just call out and just say, we need to discuss this and be aware of it?
This isn't like, we're not saying anything new. Like this stuff is out there and it's all like literally these are cases. So some of the cases I found, I'm just going to really quickly run through some of them, right? These are just the more highly publicized ones. So the Bacchus or Bacchus Marsh Hospital in Victoria, in 2022, they investigated 101 reports of, so basically medical malpractice across 43 registered health practitioners, some with multiple notices against their names. And this was in regard to preventable neonatal deaths. So I couldn't find the exact number of deaths of these babies because there was different numbers across all the different news stories. But basically the medical director on site, they found that she only was the medical director in the position at the time was only on site at the hospital for 40 days in a total of 6 years when she was in that position.
Wow. 6 years.
So there was no accountability for these reports.
Is that far enough to call it like negligence?
Well, yeah, absolutely it is. And so then, and again, nothing happened until the media started reporting on these deaths. So this was interesting actually, because I can definitely relate to this, which I remember hearing about this here and there. I'm trying to think in my old job if I actually had clients who had maybe had issues with this, but the pelvic mesh implants. So I started getting reported on around 2016. Johnson & Johnson ended up paying out. It was a class action against Johnson & Johnson. They actually paid out some of the people in this class action in 2020. And apparently this had actually started in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. And these were pelvic mesh implants that were used to treat, things like prolapse and urinary incontinence and things in women. And was found there was regulatory failure, potential research fraud, and experimental surgery that wasn't disclosed. So these women weren't given informed consent, and they were basically treated as guinea pigs. And again, I just found that interesting because it's very similar to what I've gone through with my breast implants and things that happen in the cosmetic surgery industry with implants and things like that aren't tested for safety and efficacy. And they're
I'll point this out. Unless it's maybe even titanium knees and hips and stuff like that, that's probably better than like a plastic or a chemical product like breast implants. But in general, implanting things into your body, it's obviously like a very extreme thing to do. So there's a whole lot of things you need to do before then. Honestly, just to take care of yourself. And we'll get into that with some of the lifestyle shifts and preventative things and taking responsibility back about this. But yeah, this whole pelvic mesh thing. I remember my uncle, when I was getting ready to go into the medical training at Fort Bragg, he had a hernia and he was stressing the surgery because he was hearing different things about different mesh implants and trying to find one that was safe and all this. I don't know enough about that. My guess is there's probably some more effective ways to deal with regenerating the tissue and preventing another hernia after you've had one. But yeah, it doesn't need surgery, but it needs another look at what the actual treatments are. So
yeah, but again, when you're in the medical system and you're seeing registered health practitioners, I'm saying that in air quotes because that's what they're called, they're only ever going to recommend what they know within that system. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that's always the thing. It's like medication. If medication doesn't, it never works. It never cures anything. Then it's surgery. And then potentially the surgeries are including implanting some kind of device or screws or something. That's all they know. So it's a little bit of that, whatever's in the Bible, forgive them for they know not what they do. It's a little bit of that, but it's also kind of like, when are they actually going to see what they're doing? Because to me, it is so fucking obvious. I don't understand how they don't see it. And again, that's where cognitive dissonance comes in, because this is what a lot of these doctors, it's just a cognitive dissonance. They'll probably never see it because they've built their whole lives around this career. Mm-hmm. Just a couple of other ones I want to quickly go through because people will have heard of some of these too. But the Red Cross blood contamination, this has been ongoing from 2011 to 2024 was some of the most recent reports. And I've known about this for a while.
Contamination with what?
Donated blood. Contaminated.
With what, Hep C and...
Everything. Hep C, HIV, all different things. And people have died. Children have died. There were reports of... So that's why there's a span of that. If you look into that, either Red Cross infected blood or blood contamination, there are so many stories. And again, I will link this website that I found because it actually had some great information. And then another one that I'd not heard of, the butcher of Bega. So these are all just in Australia, but the Johnson & Johnson one was across different countries. The Red Cross blood contamination was across here and in the UK. There were reports of it. Wouldn't be surprised if it's happening in the States as well. And then this butcher of Bega, so Bega is a place in Australia, an OBGYN that was linked to 15 deaths. Mm-hmm. So God knows what he was doing as an OBGYN to cause deaths.
And I'll add to that some other things. So obviously, we did the episode with all the Epstein stuff. there's been crazy things happening for a long time before Epstein and all that stuff ever came to the surface. And these things really haven't been fully dealt with. Like there was one hospital in the UK, and this is just one, there might be others, that was sued because they found out that they were taking aborted fetuses and using them in an incinerator and using the incinerator to power their hospital. So they're literally like taking dead babies and burning them and using it for electricity for the hospital. Like that's the kind of inhumanity, the kind of disrespect for life, or just cold, calculating medical attitude about this.
Yeah.
That runs these places, that makes decisions for the entire hospital at a high level. And again, I'm saying that people that are making those decisions are not the physicians with the patients dealing with these things. It's people that aren't practicing, that aren't really down there with people. They're just at a seeming status above everyone else, just making decisions with a monetary lens. Like everything is just numbers, everything is just money. It's very cold. We need a better system. Like, you know, all the different memes and tropes out there, like, oh, it's 2026. Are we still doing this? Well, burning dead babies and powering power plants is never, like, whether it's 1500s or 30,000 years in the future, like that's never an ethical choice I would make, or anybody that I know that values life. And that's just one. There's hospitals in Texas that were busted for falsifying medical death stuff and taking organs, doing organ harvesting. People that came in with a donor card, you know, an organ donor thing marked on their driver's license, were in a car accident that could have survived, that were allowed to die so that they could harvest their organs. And this has been proven in court. They were caught doing it. And the people in that case mostly were probably dealt with. I know some of them went to jail for that. And that was in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah. This stuff happens all the time. And
so if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, sounds like, looks like, smells like a duck, it's a freaking duck, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think when it hits so close to home, it's like, I had to share this because how can people not see it? And I'm sure like our listeners, if you know anyone that's had a similar experience, and obviously we saw this so much during COVID, and thankfully a lot of people have woken up throughout that process. And unfortunately, it's taken a lot of people to be injured to make the connection. But if anyone's had a similar experience, like please send this to them, because I think people's stories can be so powerful to motivate others to change. It's like, sometimes it doesn't matter about the statistics and, you know, the cases and whatever, and the numbers. For people, sometimes it's just hearing a story that they can relate to. And unfortunately, my uncle's story did result in his death. But honestly, it was the best thing that could have happened for him, because what kind of life is that, to just suffer in that way because of these chemicals, these synthetic chemicals that are in your body that should not be there, especially when your body's already compromised.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously like self-medicating and drinking and all that stuff, that has quite the toll on the body. So the medical system is taking a lot of weight with some of this. They are dealing with problems that they didn't directly create as well. I won't say that they're just doing the best they can, because they can definitely do better. And I've got some serious criticisms about the way that the medical system is training doctors. And I've seen that. And
well, you've witnessed that firsthand.
Yeah. To give you guys a perspective of where I'm coming from, there was this older gent who worked around the military, and he saw firsthand what Army Special Forces medics were capable of. Now, I'm not a full-fledged Army Special Forces medic. I went through about half of that. It's a year-long school. I went through about 6 months. The first half of that's called SOCM, Special Operations Combat Medicine. And then at the end of SOCM, you're doing, training alongside resident doctors in, a training hospital. And then what I saw in the hospitals was like a little bit of competition between us and the resident doctors who had finished their main medical training, and they were in residency for, I think, 2 years before they were like a doctor on their own or whatever. And with these doctors, I've seen things like with head injuries, doing, way too much fluid going into their body, which deals with intracranial pressure, mistakes with, I got stabbed in the hand by a doctor with a dirty needle that he bent the needle trying to administer, this weird.
Oh my God.
And we were trained very simply, don't ever bend a needle and then try to like use it, because
I have no medical training and I could figure that out. Like, seriously.
Yeah, things like that. Doctors that couldn't find a pulse on somebody on a limb, and one of our guys took them like half a second to find it, doing intubations and putting in breathing tubes and stuff. Now, I will say, like, the people that had my respect from day dot were all the surgeons. Surgeons definitely have a lot more skills in that, but it's still from a perspective of, we need to do the surgery in the first place. Like, what if you didn't? For some of these people, it's like, that's the best they can do. They're trying to do their best to, like, one person was like, there's patients that were like, severely obese and their heart was failing. So they were doing like open heart surgeries and things like that. Obviously, there's a lot of things in the decades leading up to that point in time that should have been different. But the hospital is brilliant at things like that, to literally open up someone's chest, work on their heart, get it where it's functioning, it'll last longer, and then closing them back up. Like, they're doing some really crazy, impressive stuff.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree on that. Like, if we have a car accident and there's like severe trauma to the body, like, yes, you want to go to a hospital and they'll sort you out. Yeah. But like, for everyday ailments, for chronic conditions, like, it's not the answer. The medical system is not the answer. And I think a lot of people have woken up to that in the last 5 years in particular. But to see this still happening, like, it is negligence. Like, just doing your best and meeting the standard of care and literally killing people. Like, I can't emphasize, like, seeing my uncle, how long ago were we there? 3 weeks ago, like within a month ago, and seeing how well he was, to the fact that he just died a few days ago. Like, I'm in shock. Mm-hmm. I was in shock when I found out, because I was like, he just went home. He was doing so much better. Like, I don't understand. And then, mum laid out everything with the medications, and it's just clear as day. Like, it's so clear that that's what killed him.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and it's not to like toot my own horn. Like, I'm not this great practitioner, but I've seen simple things in the way that certain behaviors exist. And I think it's part of the culture of the medical training, because it's from a pharmaceutical. It's like the energies and the type of people that start something and control it, that energy permeates through the entire organization. Mm-hmm. And there's been people that have been whistleblowing and calling this out for a long time. Alexis gets sick of me talking about him, but I talk about Kevin Trudeau in his book, Health Cures They Don't Want You to Know About. He explains how he's been in the room with the chairman of the board and everybody at these big pharmaceutical meetings where they're discussing an upcoming drug release, something that hasn't been released yet, but they're telling them, if we release, this many people will die. This is our percentage of people taking this will have an interaction that'll kill them. And this is how much money we're going to make. And this is about how long we estimate we can do this before we actually get caught and the FDA fines us. So financially, we're going to make billions. We'll get fined millions. Let's go ahead and do it. And the words from I believe the chairman of that board was literally, fuck them. That's what he's quoted as saying, fuck them. And then whatever else he said after that. But it's just this, if that's the attitude of the people that are controlling the pharmaceutical companies, the pharmaceutical companies without question are controlling the pharmaceutical industry and the people trained to prescribe their drugs, which is the doctors, through their endowment funds. That's literally how medical schools exist. That's how Harvard Medical is funded and controlled, and the boards, the surgical boards, and all that as well. So just saying this out in the open and just calling attention to it is just one step. And the next thing is, what can you do to begin to take back some of the responsibility? Awareness is just the first thing.
Yeah. And that's also something else we want to touch on, because it's not to point the finger and blame and say, well, it was their fault. Obviously, in my uncle's case, and for a lot of people, like what you were just sharing with someone that's morbidly obese and having open heart surgery, obviously there is a lot of responsibility from individuals that rely so heavily on the medical system. Mm-hmm. But it's so nuanced. And again, and this is a perfect example. And, it's interesting too, just reflecting on, so now the 3 people closest to me that have passed away, so 2 uncles on the same side and my grandfather on my other side of the family, 2 of them are alcoholics, my grandfather and now my uncle that's just passed. And it is very, very sad to see, like, that's what's the saddest about the whole thing, is at the end of someone's life, seeing how much they struggled and battling the demons they had in probably one of the worst ways possible. And it just goes to show that, and this is why, like, this is a big reason that, Isaac started this podcast to have these conversations, because yes, we make a product that is for physical health, but your physical health is predicated on your metaphysical health. It is preceded by your metaphysical health. And emotional health, mental health, spiritual health is just as important as physical health. And especially when people who are alcoholics and addicts of any kind, they're self-medicating. That's what it is. It's because there is trauma there. And I know in both cases of these family members, there is severe trauma that they've had in their life that they've never dealt with emotionally. And and I can also speak from experiences, because I had my own struggles with alcohol in my younger years, in my 20s. And I'm so glad that I was able to see that for what it was at that age and not see. And honestly, like, I actually am so grateful. Yeah, it's bittersweet, because I'm so grateful for those family members that I was able to learn from, because I saw their life and I never wanted that for myself. And so I knew that something had to change within me. And that's when everything changed. And it's funny, because I still sometimes I'm like, I think back to, like, now I can have, like, we all, we'll go out and might have a drink or 2 at dinner, or, if we're with friends, I'll have a drink, and like, that's it. I'm just like, have a couple of drinks and I'm fine. And there was a time when I could not just have a couple of drinks. Like, I had to get wasted, basically. And so I've come such a long way, and I forget that sometimes. But I believe that this is the stuff. And again, this is why it's so important for us to take responsibility for what's going on with us and look at the deeper layers, so that we can shift that for our the ancestral line, forward and backward, because it goes both ways.
Yeah, what you said was so key. I wish I could just rewind it and play that again, because when you shifted something within you, everything else like that changed. And it wasn't you were suppressing the behavior. The focus isn't just, oh, you have to stop drinking. Just like stop drinking, go to the meetings, pour all the liquor down the sink. Like, if that's the first step, cool. Get yourself out of that situation. But inside, something needs to fundamentally change and shift, because now it's like your relationship with alcohol is completely different, totally different context. And yeah, we get it. Like, in general, it's not very healthy or healthy at all. People claim it's like literally poison. Potentially. I mean, water is poison if you drink enough of it. So just being aware of it and having not just control over yourself, but actually some compassion and love and courage to actually look at what's driving the behavior, and then to go into that and seek healing. Yeah,
totally. And so I think this is also just a really important lesson in, and look, a lot of this is shifting. I think we're going to I think we're seeing the last of this. And when I say the last of this, like this, the previous generation before us, I think this is where we're going to see a lot of this. Like, this is unfortunately what happens when you abuse your body your whole life and you don't take full responsibility and, heal those things that you hold within you, those traumas or whatever it may be. And look, and I also understand, like, that generation, they just grew up in a different time. Like, they don't, like, now it's like everyone, I mean, even like for me 20 years ago, like, no one talked about anxiety. Like, I didn't know what anxiety was until I was in my early 20s and realized that I'd had it like for most of my teenage years. And so we are living in a different time, and it's so good that this stuff is talked about and understood by, I would say, the vast majority of the population now. But unfortunately, that generation, it's very sad to see that that's what happens. Like if you abuse your body your whole life and you don't look after yourself and you rely on the medical system to keep you well, which they're not going to do, unfortunately, you see deaths like this that are just very sad. Like I know for my mum as well, like she's always said, like, I'm never going to die in a hospital bed. Like I just want to, and because that was the thing I grew up with my mum also saying, like, people don't die in their sleep anymore. She was like, she grew up in a time where it was just normal, where elderly people just went to bed one night and didn't wake up. And she always said, I just want to die in my sleep. I just want to die in my sleep. I'm never going to die in a hospital bed. Because look how common it is now. It's like most people we know now die in a hospital bed or die at home because they're sick and unwell.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I guess one thing else about that is like, it's not to judge, like you said it really well again, but to highlight that this is a different time, you know, for my dad's father, you know, was an alcoholic as well. And like, you know, I don't know what his traumas were. I have literally no idea about how he grew up, but like something happened that spawned all that. And that was the way he and probably other people around him dealt with problems. And we're fortunate now to be able to have access to more information and stories and be able to like share this with people so that we can be more informed and have knowledge that'll help us make better choices. And so that's part of it, is just bringing the awareness up, not to just put people in a situation where they just feel hopeless and desperate. It's not, you know, that's what the education system is for, not us.
Yeah.
So,
and ironically too, like, you know, you mentioned like Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever, doing the programs and whatever. They never work. Like the amount of the rates of relapse for people in Alcoholics Anonymous is like phenomenal, because it's the same thing. It's like they medicalize it. They call it a disease. Alcoholism is not a disease. I would beg to say that it's more of a mental health issue more than anything, because it is a coping mechanism. It's not a disease. Like to call it a disease is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's making you like a permanent victim.
Yeah, and it's another story for another time. Yeah. But it's also the same. It's like this Band-Aid. Just come to the meetings every week. We'll talk about your problems, just like therapy. We'll just talk about your problems. We'll just tell the story over and over and over again just to reinforce it. And there is no deep inner healing. Now, that's not to say that everyone that goes through, you know, like there's not anyone that goes through Alcoholics Anonymous that stops drinking and never stops drinking again. I would say that's a very, that's a minority of people. But again, it's like there's a whole story behind Alcoholics Anonymous. I won't get into it. Maybe we'll do a future episode on that, because I've got a lot. I've got a brilliant book that I read on that helped me many years ago. And yeah, it's not a disease. It's basically what we said. It's taking full responsibility and dealing with your stuff. And again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir with our listeners, but if you know anyone that could benefit from listening to this conversation, that there's something that they can relate to, or if it might like just change their mind on something a little bit, like in their own life, where they might choose to do something differently, because there are so many more options than just just going down the medical route. Like when you actually look at what they call alternative health, which is just alternative to the medical, there are so many avenues you can go down that are way less harmful than the medical industry.
Yeah. And I know there's people that have, you know, thrown a lot of shade at even like the natural medicine routes that are still kind of basically based off of the same modality or whatever that we're talking about. And that's, yeah, true, but it's still better. Like it's in a good direction. It's moving away from just prescribing drugs to prescribing plants and herbal things like that. I'm not against that. That's a good step in the right direction. And then keep going, like get deeper with it. And like even the medical stuff, because I obviously like I feel like I just scratched the surface of what's possible with the medical stuff, but I feel very well prepared and capable and competent to handle a wide range of really severe medical issues, you know, traumas especially, but also some chronic things and and I also am very confident and competent in finding solutions and like, you know, what's the mechanism that's causing this illness and what do we do about it? And what are some other things that'll, you know, move the body into better health or give it more vitality or shift the balance to where the body's naturally healing itself faster again. You know, it's like playing pool. We're not just hitting the one ball, hitting that ball. It's like we're doing like bank shots and stuff. So that's what we have to do, is take that valuable knowledge that we gained from the medical world. I'm not saying that that's just all, you know, just throw it all out because it's all around death. The committee that's driving it right now is throw them out. But the knowledge that we gained from it, I mean, hell, like, you know, half the stuff I wonder if we learned from the freaking Nazis as they were experimenting on people, you know, like we know a lot of stuff, but it's like a lot of it comes from some dark areas. But we just have what we have now, and we'll just do the best we can to move forward and create something as closely aligned to spiritual integrity and lawful coherence with the universe that we can. So that's what I'm calling for. That's what I want to speak into creation.
Yeah, well, and that's what natural art form, I mean, that's literally how you created natural art form, was
just solving a problem.
Well, yeah, and it was literally that. And that was from a direct experience with the medical system. You were seeing a doctor. All they did was prescribe you 800 milligrams of ibuprofen for a shoulder injury, which is a very high dose. You were taking, 6 of them a day?
Yeah.
And it wasn't helping. He was just getting side effects. His shoulder was not healing, and it didn't even
really stop the pain.
Yeah, it didn't even knock the pain down that much. So it's like,
that's 4.5. That's almost 5 grams a day.
That's
of freaking
a
ibuprofen
lot
that they were putting me on.
Yeah, that's a lot. And that's what Isaac did. He took responsibility and just asked the question, like, what can I do differently? What's another option? He started tinkering with, just herbal oils, arnica and anti-inflammatory oils. Then he stumbled upon DMSO, and, the rest is history, as they say. And that's how he made Alleviate. And, we have we were just at the markets over the weekend. We have so many customers that come back. Like, I was at a market that I only did for the first time last month. And already I had one couple walk straight up and say, we'll take an Alleviate. I was like, oh, have you bought from us before? And they said, oh, no, our mum did and she can't stop raving about it. I had 2 ladies come back from the month before and buy more of what they got last month because they love it. And it's helping people. And that's the thing. It's like when you start to look at just other ways of doing things, like where I think that's part of the brainwashing too, is like the natural route, it doesn't work as well. Like it's not as strong or powerful, or it doesn't get the results. It's actually quite the opposite. And that's our whole philosophy, is that our product doesn't cure anything. It supports the body to naturally heal itself, which is what the body is designed to do.
Yeah. You just give it resources and get out of its way a little bit.
Yeah.
And it'll work. It'll do some amazing stuff. And that was a fundamental shift for me too. Cause as impressive as like SOCM medicine or the SOCM medics and the special forces medics are, they still run on that same system by and large. They're still prescribing medications and drugs, but they're doing it outside of a lot of the main, like long-term, like it takes 10 years for doctors to become doctors. It takes a special forces medic about a year to become a special forces medic, who not that long ago were able to get a job as an actual physician in 20 or more countries in the world. So it's very high level of training, but they still do, 800 milligram ibuprofen for everything, So I'm calling those guys out too. Like, you guys do some really kick-ass stuff, but try Alleviate, try something else. It's like, a natural thing that actually works. Get into looking at DMSO and how you can augment some of your care for patients and amplify the effects. Even if you want to do the pharmaceutical route, the reason the pharmaceutical companies have tried to suppress DMSO for so long is because early on they were using it with pharmaceutical medications, but they were able to administer way less, like 1% or 2% of what they would normally prescribe. They can mix a little bit of that with DMSO and apply it topically, or take it internally and get the same effects or better with less toxicity. Because just remember that, like, all the pharmaceutical stuff, if it's made through a solvent extraction process, which is pretty much how it goes with petrochemicals, you're taking in some form of toxicity.
They're all
with those
synthetic,
drugs.
guys. That every pharmaceutical drug is synthetic chemicals. Like, that's all it is. Even the ones that were original, like penicillin was developed from a mold or bacteria or whatever it is.
I've gone back to, by the way, actual penicillin.
Yeah, I know people that do. Like, you can eat something moldy if like you've got some kind of infection and it actually helps.
Yeah, I've done that. I've used moldy limes or moldy lemons for a bunch of years.
Yeah. But they take that and then they make the synthetic version so they can patent it and then they make the drug from it. So nothing in the pharmaceutical realm of things is natural in any way, shape or form.
Oh, but they used to do herbal stuff though, or herbal. That's where mustard gas came from. I'm pretty sure it actually comes from mustards. But they use that as like, to commit war crimes. And then they decided to turn that into a cancer treatment. It's also known today as chemotherapy. So that's the medical system's version of herbalism. Literal poison injected into your bloodstream.
Yeah.
So
we don't give medical advice on this show. This is not medical advice.
We're just pointing
of any
out some
sort.
Fairly obvious things.
Things that you can look up yourself, and we just implore people to, honestly, most of our listeners, I would say the biggest takeaway from this is like advocate for those people. We all have family members. We all have friends that just don't see the light yet, so to speak. Just advocate for them if they ever are in this situation, because unfortunately they're the ones, especially when you are unwell, you're not going to fight that. Not that it has to be a fight, but you're not going to question the medical doctors. You're not going to you're just going to go along with what they're saying, especially if like you've ended up in that spot because you've always relied on them. It's so important to advocate for them in any way that you can. And then just please share this with anyone that you feel needs to hear this. We've covered quite a lot here, but even if it's just hearing the story of my uncle and they can see that the same kind of thing is happening, because if it can prevent, and I'm not saying like, again, my uncle wasn't going to last long. Like he abused his body his whole life, but did he have to die in that way? Like that's what is so hard for me. It's the people that die in hospital suffering.
Yeah.
So that's all we got for you this week. We don't want to be morbid, but I think it's important to share this.
Well, and another thing, God bless your family. God bless your mom for being who she is, and your auntie for being there with them this whole time. And they're funny. Like your auntie is very funny. She's a funny woman. And it just reminds me of stories that I'd heard. If you listen back to some of those old Zig Ziglar books, I listen to them on audio because it's good for making a long drive tolerable. But he's so positive. But he talked about people that healed themselves from things by laughing. There's I don't know the specific condition. It might have been cancer, but somebody he was talking about that Zig knew literally just brought in a TV with those old VHS tapes and played the Three Stooges every day and just laughed hysterically for hours a day and became well again. So that's great. And then, just being with somebody, comforting them, bringing them healthy food. There's a guy that I recommend looking into as well. He's not a medical guy, but he's Joseph McClendon III. Interesting guy. But he talked about his mom having cancer and being, the doctor saying, without telling the mother, had told Joseph that she had maybe 6 months to live or something, like they do. They try to pronounce a time period for you to expire. And he instinctually, thank God, knew, don't believe that shit. And he told the doctor, do not tell her that. Don't mention that to her. Don't bring her any food. I don't know what he said about medications, but he was probably telling him like, fuck off with all your medications. And he took charge and he brought in fresh, healthy food to his mother every day and stayed with her and laughed with her and like took care of her. And she lived, I don't know how much longer, but it might've been like a decade later. Like it was crazy.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think my uncle would have lasted as long as he did, like since the beginning of the year when he got really unwell, if it wasn't for my mum and my auntie and the family around him and his partner, because as we know, human connection is so extremely important. Like it's not hard. You can look up, like they've done studies on, elderly people that don't have purpose or connection in their life. They always die sooner than the ones that do. So that's so extremely important. And they were bringing him home cooked food and the food that he loves. And that makes such a huge difference. They had, like, when he was at one of the palliative care units, they had a barbecue and, his son and grandkids and, all the family came to be with him and played his records, his favorite music. And
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Don't forget to, just give your family some slack if they're in different places than you as far as medical health goes, but just be encouraging, be the light. A light doesn't come annoy you and knock on the door and spout all these medical facts to you, but it just shows up, and it is, something to light the path.
Yeah.
So be the light for your family.
Yeah.
And make this a good one. Make this life amazing.
Yeah. So thank you guys for being here with us. So grateful to all of our listeners and all of our customers at Natural Art Form. We just can't stop expressing our gratitude lately, like being at the markets and just how much we've grown, and it's all through word of mouth. Like, we don't pay for advertising. The podcast is probably the only place we really advertise, so to speak. And it just keeps growing and growing. And we're so incredibly grateful for everyone that supported us. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Natural AF.
Thanks for tuning in to the Natural AF podcast, where we explore holistic healing modalities, mindsets, and methods that reconnect us to nature and our natural state of being.
If something resonated, share this episode and see the show notes for our guest links, as well as all of our discount codes for our aligned affiliates and Natural Art Form, where we handcraft a range of organic, natural remedies to help support your body's natural healing abilities and help support the show.
If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please take a few seconds to leave us a rating and review. And if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, hit the like button and drop us a comment, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for the latest updates.
We're not here to conform. We're here to remember what's real. So step into your power, be curious, and be natural AF.